Welcome, wrestling fans, to the PW Fan. The PW Fan is the ultimate pro wrestling podcast created by fans for the fans. And this is episode 134. Damn, does that feel good to say? As some of you may know, I've been on late the last few weeks with my daughter's new bedtime. But hey, she went to bed early tonight. I am your host, collector, barber, musician, and most importantly, a professional wrestling podcaster, Talk Wrestling, Tim Gilbert.
And I'm your host, the Architect of Pro Wrestling Podcast, Andy.
All right, Booker, Andy. Guys, our no-selling indie wrestling fan, Jeremy, will be here shortly. He had a couple things to do, and then he'll be on before the end of the episode. But before we get started today, please go to youtube.com/the PW Fan. Like, subscribe, comment. All that stuff really helps us out. When you do that, it really supports us, helps us get on the homepage, and helps us get up in the algorithm a little bit. For all other social media platforms, you just search at the PW Fan. We should pop right up. And then for t-shirts, prowrestlingtees.com/the PW Fan. All right, for today's episode, we will be talking about the debut of the Wyatt Sick6, CM Punk, our Forbidden Door predictions, and more. All right, Andy, Booker Andy, I'm passing it over to you. Let's get going, buddy.
Alrighty. You want to start with WCW this week?
Yeah, it's fresh on my mind. We can do that.
Who Killed WCW Episode 3 came out last week.
The New Blood.
Final episode 4, will be out this week, maybe today actually, or tonight. And that's going to be, I believe, about the final Nitro. So this week's episode, Tim said New Blood, which is the episode focused around the time when Vince Russo came in. Tim, do you want to expand on what went down?
Okay, so in episode 3 of Who Killed WCW, we're basically leaving off where Eric Bischoff has been told to go home, take sabbatical. You're done for the time being. Brad Siegel, who has at this point made it pretty clear he doesn't like wrestling or have any interest in wrestling, he didn't really know what to do. So he hired, again, we're not journalists, we're just fans recapping here. They hired a guy, I wish I could remember his name. He didn't know anything about wrestling, and he thought that hiring Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara from the WWE was like going to be the answer to everybody's prayers. So he hired them, and they came in. Vince and Ed Ferrara left Vince. According to them, it was due to the pressures of writing a second show, which was Smackdown. They came into WCW at the time with full creative control for the vision of the show, and they basically started doing really terrible segments and skits and storylines that weren't advertiser friendly. They weren't getting any ratings, and it wasn't doing anybody any favors. And I think they realized they made a mistake, and they decided to bring Bischoff back, but Bischoff had to work with Vince Russo as like Vince Russo's filter, which apparently Brad Siegel, who this guy is in management and didn't tell anybody what to do at all, he didn't tell Vince Russo or Eric who exactly was in charge, and so both these guys didn't want to listen to each other, and there was nobody laying the law down saying like you need to listen to Eric, or Vince has 100% whatever control. So it was a big mess. And I mean, that's kind of what the episode takes us through, is the story of that, and how, Eric's coming in and trying to fix things, and Vince has terrible ideas, basically. Like, all of his ideas were just god-awful.
Bro, I'm writing a TV show.
Just terrible.
That's what he said. He doesn't look at it like it's wrestling. He just looks at it like it's a television show. Are people tuning in? Maybe for the wrong reasons.
I just listened to Cornette's recap of the episode, and I've listened to Kevin Nash click this recap of the episode. And Nash thinks this show is garbage.
What's the complaints about? He was
He
interviewed
just-
during it.
He just says it's not accurate. He says it's leaving shit out.
Well, did he say what they're leaving out?
And he was like, "You're going to talk about Benoit, leaving because he wasn't happy with Vince Russo not being there and Kevin Sullivan booking." He's like, "But you're leaving out that he was banging Kevin Sullivan's wife at the time." Like Nash isn't holding back any punches, dude. He has his
No
own
documentary though has ever gone into that. Every documentary I've seen is like those guys left because they were unhappy with the booking. That's
And
literally every documentary.
Basically what other people have alluded to is that because Chris was with Nancy, it was making the work environment uncomfortable because Kevin Sullivan, the ex-husband, was the booker. So he was in charge of Benoit's career. So Benoit was like, I got to get out of here. And then he did.
Well, that's only one of 3 guys that left at the same time.
Yeah, but they left in solidarity in support of their friend. Like Eddie and Perry Saturn and Dean left with Chris as like you're our. I mean, this is all according to the lore. That you're our bro, and let's get you out of here. Like, there's a story that Eddie Guerrero said that when he met with Vince McMahon, that he really wanted to get signed, but he said, just at least give Chris a chance because he deserves it. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard this on multiple documentaries and shoot interviews.
Speaking of WCW, I believe I sent you a text the other day saying that their lowest ratings, even when it was bad, was like 1 point something million, right? Wasn't it something like that? We don't need
goes
the
to
exact
show
number,
how much
but
more. When you do your comparison number in a second here, it's just going to go to show how many more people were watching wrestling back then than do now, even though WWE is on a quote unquote uptick.
Well, this is the thing. It's like they had like 1 point something million, and they made a documentary of who killed this company, while there's a company out there, AEW, who just hit a record low with their Dynamite the other week of, it was like 500 something thousand. I think I texted you, I said, less people all over the world watched AEW Dynamite than there are in Baltimore City. And they've done a lot of similar things that WCW did, mistake-wise.
I mean, I wish Jeremy was here to kind of like balance this out, but like I don't even really know what to say about it anymore.
The thing is, when Jeremy is the one that loses faith in AEW, that's when it's
He's
it's
not
bad,
the
'cause he
only one, dude.
defends it.
I've had customers who are, they're my friends, but they always get on me. They're like, "Oh, you can't believe you like Cornette. He's a piece of shit." Like, for all the generic reasons that people say they don't like Cornette. How about this, guys? Go listen to his fucking show, and then I'm just gonna say it again for the people in the back, dude. People think Cornette is this like racist right winger like weirdo guy, and it's laughable. Just go listen to the show and you have no idea what you're talking about. But people always like get on me like, "Oh, he's a Cornette guy" or whatever. But it's just like, no, it's fucking, if shit's bad, it's bad, and like this just hasn't been good. It's been really bad lately.
Well, because of that, I've decided to change up the format this week, and we're going to knock out all AEW stuff first, because WWE had a hell of a week. So we're going to end on WWE, just back-to-back Raw to SmackDown, and then AEW, we're going to go Dynamite through Collision. I kind of wish, again, Jeremy was here to go through it, but That's the way she goes. And so let's start with Dynamite. MJF had his first televised match back, I believe, since returning, and he defeated Roosh in his first match back. After that, Swerve and Will Ospreay finally had a face-to-face ahead of their match at Forbidden Door. The Acclaim would defeat the Young Bucks to earn a future title shot. As far as I know, I don't know if it's happening at Forbidden Door, but maybe it will happen at Wembley. But nothing's been announced for Forbidden Door with those teams. They also have the Blood and Guts at some point coming up. Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa had a contract signing for their match at Forbidden Door. I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot. And Mariah May is caught in between both of these girls. Mina was her partner, her tag partner, I believe in Stardom, or whatever other wrestling promotion they were at over in Japan. While here she's with Toni Storm, and Mina told her that she wants her to pick a side. So maybe at the pay-per-view something will happen. Maybe costing, one of them the title. I'm gonna say she's gonna cost Toni Storm because Mina's just gonna go back to Japan. I mean, what storyline further progresses if you have Mina
but you're
win the
talking
AEW Women's
about
title?
booking from a perspective of a guy that would want to make sense of booking. I don't think Tony cares whether it makes sense or not. So you can't AEW is a hard thing to predict booking for because he's not coming at it from a logical.
Booker Andy is wrong with AEW a lot.
Yeah. Tony stumps you because he doesn't make any logical sense.
I mean, yeah, if you made Mina the champ, then she goes back to Japan. Okay, she's just been on TV for this feud.
But he would do that.
He would do it to feud Mariah May with Toni Storm and tell that story in sacrifice for his women's title.
Oh my god! Which is that's the problem right there. Of many. One of many.
They're for the sickos, as Tony says.
Booking for the sickos.
Now there's shirts out there, and
he's booking for the Reddit.
Chris Statlander would.
He's booking for the deep
for the IWC, man. It's for the IWC.
No, it's not even the IWC. My bro's booking for 4chan and Reddit. He's not even he's on that deep level stuff right now.
He's booking for the guy that told CM Punk, he's your first match back and be a Hell in a Cell. He's first match back. He's I thank God you're not in charge of creative, buddy. Chris Statlander would defeat Nyla Rose to advance in the Owen Hart tournament. MJF and Ospreay would both help out Daddy Magic and Daniel Garcia as they were getting attacked. And then for the first time, I know it's not the storyline now, but we got Ospreay versus versus MJF looking at each other face to face in the ring, kind of nose to nose. That was exciting. That makes me wonder, do we maybe get, not makes me wonder, but makes me think, would that be a good match to have at Wembley?
Ospreay and MJF?
Ospreay's from, Great Britain, England, and then have MJF, who's one of the biggest stars there.
The problem is here's
or do you do Ricochet and Will Ospreay?
No. Hear me out. You got two issues here. Okay. The glaring big one is Swerve's the champ, but it doesn't. He's getting the hangman syndrome right now, where you built it up, and then you made me care about it, and then when he actually won it, now I don't really care anymore. It's just he's the champ. Did you make it feel
Ospreay could be champ after Forbidden Door? He could be double champ.
But what I'm saying is, I don't feel like there's any other person besides Ospreay that would be on MJF's level. So if you're going to do the Wembley match, right? If that's their like peak of the year, if they want to start making that like their thing, it has to be Swerve or Ospreay. Who else would face MJF? Who else is on that level to face him right now
There's
on the
one other
roster?
guy that he hasn't faced,
Ooh,
and he's not healthy right now, and that's Kenny Omega.
no, and that's not going to happen.
No, I'm saying he's not healthy. I said there's one other guy that I can think of the entire roster that I'm like, yeah, this would be good. They've had the Danielson match. They've had the Adam Cole match. They've, you know,
It's crazy. I'm glad MJF stayed because, you know, for AEW's sake, because I was thinking, dude, if he left, oh my God, dude, it'd be so bad right now. It'd be crazy.
Corey asked me. He said, "How long you give AEW?" I said, "If they don't change," I said, "No more." I said, "They'll be gone in 3 years if they don't make a change."
But
at least from live TV. They can be off of TV like TNA.
It depends because can't say that because there's some factors in here. Like their ratings are low, but television's different now. And if TNT TBS is like, you know what, we're cool with 500,000. That's pretty good for our network. That's more than we get on some shows. It's like, it just, I think I've heard people describe it as you're getting easy ratings. You're getting people. You got a product that's cheap to produce in AEW. You know, it's pretty cheap to put on the air, and you got weekly content, and you got 3 shows, and it doesn't get great numbers, but it gets enough where people are tuning in. It's like we don't know what the metric of success is for that company. Like, is 500,000
At least now
fine?
again.
Yeah, is it fine? Are they like, hey, that's good enough? We're cool with that. We don't care. Like that's fine. Would they prefer more? Probably, but are they fine with that? I don't know.
All right, well, I could be wrong. There's like 40 more Dynamites, and they've been on longer than
But
Nitro was. So.
but okay. The other thing that I wanted to throw in there real quick is just the fact that we can't count out the fact that when WCW went under, Ted Turner had lost control of a lot of his company, Turner Company, to AOL Time Warner, who they merged with. But Tony's kind of his own entity. You know, he has money from his dad. I feel like, yeah, if it's not on TNT or TBS, it's like he can keep this thing going as long as he wants, even if it is on Pop TV or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, he can keep AEW around as long as he feels like paying for it.
Well, look at you coming to the aid of AEW and defending it.
I'm just saying it's not going to go anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it all the way down to ROH on like the CW or whatever level before anything like that ever happened. Like Tony ain't letting that shit go anytime soon. He'll go down with
NXT's
it.
going to CW.
Well,
But
I'm just saying. Remember when Ring of Honor was on like local cable, and it like
yeah, it was CW. Yeah.
like there's no way like Tony will like he'll ride that ship to the all the way to the bottom, dude.
It'll just keep moving networks,
Yeah.
no matter how small. It's on PBS, public broadcasting
And yeah, it's on PBS, and he's still paying people $10 million to come in for. That's the thing, because he has so much money, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
How do you compete?
All right.
I mean, the only way that you compete with somebody who has unlimited money is to just put on a better product, straight up, and that's pretty much what we're seeing right now.
True.
The Yankees buy all the best players in baseball, and yeah, they're very good right now. They don't always win the World Series because sometimes just a fucking better team wins. Doesn't matter if like how much money you have to spend.
Team with heart. Team with heart.
Dude, heart and passion. I think goes further a lot of the time, and also just this has nothing to do with baseball, but just good storytelling. My God, please, it's not that. I mean, it probably is that hard, but just get somebody to do it that knows how.
Yeah. All right, main event Dynamite was Pac defeating Claudio to advance in the Owen Hart tournament. Rampage this week, two little things to talk about. Lio Rush would defeat Action Andretti to qualify for the TNT Championship ladder match. So now we have Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, Jack Perry, Lio Rush, Dante Martin, and we're waiting on one other person. And then Rampage also, Willow Nightingale defeated Serena Deeb to advance in the Owen Hart tournament. And then Collision, and this is surprising for me to say because I usually don't care about Brian Cage. The main event was Will Ospreay defeating and retaining his championship against Brian Cage in a banger of a match.
I did actually not see
two
this
very
match.
different styles of people. Brian Cage, who moves like he shouldn't move for that size, and then you got Will Ospreay, who's just Will Ospreay. Not much more you need to say about that. For right now, see, normally I was going to go into Forbidden Door predictions, but I'm going to wait for Jeremy. This Forbidden Door, though, I will say, there's a lot. I mean, again, maybe the core key audience of AEW knows like half of these guys, but I, for once, like, in the past, I've known a lot of the like New Japan guys, but there's a lot of like CMML and some New Japan guys that I just do not know that are like facing people, and maybe like an indie fan or something is just like, yeah, and I'm just like, I have no idea. I just always assume all the AEW people are gonna win because it's their pay-per-view, but
I don't know, man.
It was like an Okada.
I've thought about this stuff from time to time, like, not that it really matters, but it's like, oh, I know Shizusuke whatever from Japan. It's like, does that make me any less of a wrestling fan? Because it's like, I bet you 10-1 that you couldn't tell me jack shit about Mid-South or anything before 1980. So I'm like, it's like we all like different stuff. It's like music, right? It's like we all can be nerds for different things. It doesn't make anybody right or wrong. But like I just hate that like mentality of like, oh, you like the E, you watch the Fed, you're not a real wrestling fan. It's like okay, dude, tell me, like, go back and name me like a couple Starrcade main events, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, so it's like we're equally, you like what you like.
It's funny because I feel like the people that would say that really don't like that are into like that kind of wrestling really don't know the wrestling that everything came from.
No, because they don't make it important anymore. And you got guys like people in MCW who still care, guys like Bro Keller who still care, Jerry Mercury, and there's plenty of others that still pass down the old generation. But then you got guys that even admittedly say that they don't take advice and they don't care. And Arn Anderson said themselves that, or Tully Blanchard said that nobody ever asked them for any advice ever, which is fucking crazy.
While they were there.
Yes. That is insane.
No, Mr. Funk. I don't need your advice.
No, Mr. Funk, I don't need your advice. Grow up.
Who the fuck are you? All right, well, until Jeremy gets on it, if he doesn't get on, or if he gets on at all, but we'll wait till the end. Raw and Smackdown this week. This was one of the best weeks of WWE since WrestleMania. Before we get started, that documentary, WrestleMania 40 Behind the Curtain, comes out next Wednesday, finally, July 3rd. About all the stuff that went down, I guess, before Mania with The Rock, and it's a thing that he was filming that was supposed to come out like a long time ago.
Let me ask you
Next
this:
Wednesday,
is The Rock ever not filming himself?
No, Whether it's Instagram or
He's like, I'm in
or
the children's burn center, about to read some stories to the kids. Make sure you film this. Need this for Instagram.
while putting smiles on face.
It's like, dude, you don't gotta film everything. That's why, like people can say what they want, but you know why I like John Cena? Because he's never out there like, you know how many Make-A-Wishes I've done? It's like, he just does it.
He had no idea.
And then people are
Or
like,
says he had
oh,
no idea.
wow, that guy does a lot of cool stuff for kids. And then you're like, really? That's awesome. He's not out there like bragging about it.
Well, not to mention his Instagram, which I'm sure a lot of people know.
God.
You
don't
his
need
Instagram. No, Cena's Instagram. Cena's Instagram is the best because it's just got to figure it out for yourself. He's not bragging and showing things off.
The simplest stuff, like people will be like, oh, I gave a homeless guy $10. Like, let's just say on like their Instagram story or Facebook post, they're like, gave a homeless guy $10 a day. Seemed like you really needed it. It's like, dude, you don't tell people. That ruins the good deed that you did. It takes off the, I don't know. So I don't know.
It's like, would you have done it if you didn't have a camera? Would you have done it if you didn't have a camera on you?
Yeah, The Rock's always just filming like shit, and it's just phony. I like The Rock as a wrestling character, but
dude, he found a way to get into the WCW documentary that he produced.
It makes no sense. He was never around.
He was like, I was just watching backstage to see what they were doing better than us. That's like his whole input every episode.
His biggest year was like 1999. When he really like popped off, and by then WCW was like already sucking. So it's like Goldberg had already lost the title, like it was already on its like trajectory down.
He's basically talking about the times when he was like Rocky Maivia.
Yeah, I'm like, dude,
that's the times, that small period. All right, Raw this week. All right, WWE Raw. Seth Rollins returned to open up the show. I had not read any rumors that he was going to return, so it was a nice surprise, and the audience was hyped for it. Damian Priest ended up coming out, and the gist of this segment was Damian Priest, the champion, challenged Seth Rollins to a match, which is different. That was addressed more this week on Raw. Seth and Damian would talk about it. The week we're talking about, yeah. So Damian, I think he challenged him as trying to shut the naysayers up and prove to everyone that he can beat, I guess, the inaugural champion. So they're gonna have a match at Money in the Bank. Seth and Damian for the title. Now, there are stipulations that got added last night, but again, we're going to have to wait till next week to talk about them. Adam Pearce would deny Chad Gable, another title shot, and books him in a match against Braun Strowman. Right after this happened, the match would happen, and Braun would end up defeating Gable, and Alpha Academy would fall apart. Big Otis would put his hands on Gable. Big pop for Otis. This is kind of what fans have been waiting for. And it's official, the Alpha Academy is done with, or they are at least done with Gable being with them.
I tell you what, I'm glad as hell, because I've been done with this shit for like 6 to 8 months.
Well, remember when it was like just Chad and Otis, and they would like feud with like Randy and Matt Riddle? They were like kind of funny here and there. But then they added Maxine and Tozawa. And then you were just like, oh my god. Backstage, Finn Balor told Damian Priest he took Liv Morgan's hotel key card the week before so that it was out of the way and no longer a distraction. He then vowed to win the men's Money in the Bank match and cash in on Cody. But there were telltale signs, it feels like, that if he were to win, he would cash in on Damian. I think that's going to, implode eventually. Io Sky would qualify for Money in the Bank by defeating Zelina Vega and Kiana James. This is partially because Liv Morgan gets involved with the Zelina stuff, who she's kind of been feuding with. It's not official yet, I believe, but Liv versus Zelina, possibly at Money in the Bank. seems to be a direction they could be headed. There was a really good segment with Sami Zayn where eventually Braun Breaker would come out and say that, he should be next in line considering how many wins he's racked up and kind of destroying everyone. Out would come Sheamus, who has had a little bit of an issue with Braun Breaker lately. And this whole thing with Sami being in the middle, I don't know, it just works, man. And I was a fan of Braun Breaker in NXT, and I'm sure you've seen some of the clips that WWE just constantly posts of Braun Breaker. Dude's a freak. I know
dude,
some
when
people are like,
he
he's just Goldberg. He's way more talented than Goldberg, so I don't know.
he's way more talented than Goldberg as a just an all around worker, but man, he's got that Brock freakishness to him where he moves so weirdly fast. Like when he's running those ropes and
fucking dude,
and the ring's literally rocking from him hitting the ropes. Like, dude, that's crazy. Like that's that type of Brock Lesnar freakish athlete stuff. You know it when you see it. You know when you see big guys doing stuff that you're like, they shouldn't be able to move like that, and they do.
We'll get back to them in a second. All throughout the night, there was a mystery of Dom's cow vest. Dom and Liv, and eventually, he found his cow vest. Liv was wearing it. She was seen backstage. They were up against the wall, and then I believe Cockblock Finn came back around. Maybe it was Damian Priest, I don't know, but Finn's been getting involved lately. Drew McIntyre would come out, not say too much. He just said, I can't do this anymore. I quit. So Drew McIntyre, at least as of that Monday, had quit WWE.
He says, I quit.
So then, bringing us back, we had a match with Braun Breaker and Sheamus. Ludwig Kaiser has kind of been getting involved, especially with Sheamus stuff lately. Braun would then take it upon himself, and as Ludwig was going this way, I'm sure you saw the clip, Tim, Braun went this way and just smashed Ludwig with a spear.
Oh, I saw it.
Just hauled ass, dude. Again, like Tim was saying, just a freak athlete. They kind of been teasing that the New Day is going to break up. I don't know if it has to do with Karrion Kross, but that's what they've been hinting at. Not saying that Woods would join Karrion Kross's group, but I don't really know where they're going. I never know where they're going with Karrion Kross, man. Somehow he sticks around, though. He survives just like a cockroach.
Mm-hmm.
Jey Uso would qualify for Money in the Bank by defeating Rey Mysterio and Finn Balor, and then right afterwards, during Jey's celebration, the lights would go down. We hear that Bray stuff. Bray's music would hit. The door, when Bray re-debuted, would show. Out would come a crawling Sister Abigail, who is being played by the part of Nikki Cross. And then I love the way they did this debut of the Wyatt Sick6. And you may have talked a little bit about it, but first off, once she's out there, I'm loving the continuous camera shots. The following into the back, the following from the back out into the ring.
Yeah, all that. I like all that.
So the back, there's like fog machines going. The camera follows to the back, gets to a little corridor. There's a real life rambling rabbit with a hammer. It says help on it. Two guys are bludgeoned. This would be Eric Rowan under the mask. Then it gets into gorilla position. On top of a crate is sitting. It's like Mercy Buzzard, but with like Bray dreads. And that would be, and again, a bunch of people knocked out in gorilla position. That would be Dexter Loomis under there. Goes into another hallway. I guess it's supposed to be Huskus the pig, but it's wearing like a pig gas mask instead of like pig head, which translated into real life, I think that works better. That would be Joe Gacy from NXT. Very talented. And then after him, it would pan to Chad Gable, who Triple H addressed. He's like, people are online are like, Chad Gable got shot. Chad Gable got murdered. He's like, Chad Gable's fine. And even Tim was like, nah, he was shot in the head. I was like, dude, he was not shot in the head.
Dude, my man got shot in the head, bro.
Dude, he was just taken out. He was just taken out of action. And then it would pan to Uncle Howdy, who looked great. And it would follow him back out to the ramp along with everyone else. And they would all gather, pick up Bray's lantern and say, we're here, turn it off. Now it's a Wyatt 6 with 5 members. I'm going to look into it and say that the 6 is Bray with his spirit, the lantern, the music, the idea. I can't wait to get into next week's episode of where they went with it last night. I thought it was done super well, added layers to the whole thing, some depth.
And anybody
Can't talk about that.
We won't spoil anything, but let's just say anybody who was worried that maybe Bo Dallas wouldn't be able to hold
Uncle Howdy, yeah.
He might not be able to hold his own on the mic because he has big shoes to fill with Bray. I thought he did very good, but we will talk about it next week.
So overall, I thought the debut was a great success. I think it was a fantastic tribute to Bray's ideas and what he had planned on, because he talked about what was going to happen with Bo, because Bo's been involved in the beginning. I mean, I think they knew the direction they wanted to go, and now they can still maybe do some of his stuff, but pivot to where it relates to Bray not being around anymore, which it seems like they have. I just thought it was a great way to end the show, and different than anything else that's going on in WWE right now.
I will say,
I really enjoyed it.
As an avid member of the Cult of Cornette and a big Jim Cornette fan, anybody who listens to this show and didn't know that, I mean, guys, come on. I vehemently disagreed with him and Brian's take about this. For the first time, really, in a long time, I just was not on... They reviewed this, and they hated it.
Like, there's times Corny said something and we've disagreed, but
they said that this is the best thing to happen to Tony Khan since Vince McMahon has gotten fired.
Wow. Well, the IWC would disagree.
Dude, I have to disagree.
The YouTube views would disagree. I saw maybe one bad comment on Instagram.
But Cornette, his take was, if you're going to do a horror movie, go make a horror movie. It doesn't work in wrestling. Fine. And Brian Last...
Explain The Undertaker.
And Brian Last basically just said that it's just not it's not for him. He just doesn't like this kind of stuff. But I disagree.
The Undertaker was shooting lightning.
Well, I don't think Jim liked it back when they were doing that either. He's a heel.
So that's Raw.
Motherfucker.
He's a heel, motherfucker. All right, SmackDown, dude. SmackDown was kicked off. Hot start. They were in Chicago. So when you're in Chicago, the show tends to open up with CM Punk if he's around. And I might have to have you take over this part because you saw more recently than me. But Punk gets out there, cuts a promo. He said something about the static hitting in Chicago. And then you hear, like Mussolini, which was a little nod to Cornette when he said that, because he has mentioned before he listens to the drive-thru.
He said, I listen to the drive-thru to the experience, but I don't listen to... And here's the other thing, dude. People, I don't know what shows, or which people our shows reach and who agrees or disagrees or whatever. But you want to look up who has the most wrestling YouTube views, you already know the answer to that. Whether you like the guy or not. He has more YouTube views than anybody else, whether you like his takes or you don't like his takes. But yeah, I mean, even guys that work for both companies, if you don't think MJF is a listener of the experience and the drive-through, you're out of your
I
mind.
think he definitely is. I think
If you don't
MJF
think,
likes anyone that likes him.
if you don't think,
And Cornette likes MJF.
dude, if you don't think Tony's listening to it, he's definitely listening to it, or at least clips.
So, Punk's out there. He's talking about, I guess his match with Cena at Money in the Bank is what he's talking about in 2011. And he talks about if he were to have come into his hometown and lost, it would have been a big embarrassment. And he's doing this as a little tongue in cheek to Drew McIntyre getting embarrassed in Scotland. Shortly after that, Paul Heyman would come out and give Punk a warning that if he doesn't leave now, that the Bloodline's going to come out there any second. And he asks him if he does that favor, if he can do him a favor. Bloodline would come out, and
this was
Punk
so
gets
good.
into like fight stance, and
dude, it wasn't even good. It wasn't good because, dude, I'm a Punk fanboy, but it wasn't good because it was Punk. It was good because of the history of Heyman and Punk. And if you were a fan 13 years ago, 12 years ago, you remember, you're like, it's hitting you in your heartstrings. And Paul looks so unhappy and he hates being with Solo and the new Bloodline. And it was like, this whole thing was just so good. Like, good, so masterful.
And Punk goes, Paul, what was that favor you wanted of me if I do this favor? And he said, take me with you. And he starts quivering.
I popped at home.
Dude, it was so good. But out would come out, I believe, Cody Rhodes with a chair. Or no, bats. Baseball bats, right?
I felt like
two baseball bats.
I'm going to be honest, that felt like a Sting homage to me. That felt like a little bit of
I mean, well, I don't know if that's just because
but
you see black baseball bats in wrestling.
No, but they weren't even black. I think they were like red, like Dick's Sporting Goods looking baseball bats. But the thing is, they just running off the heels with bats. I don't know. It just feels right sometimes in wrestling. It's like feels like the right weapon, you know?
Well, shortly after this, there'd be a women's qualifier. Chelsea Green qualifies for Money in the Bank by defeating Michin and Bianca Belair. And I'm so happy Chelsea Green get qualified, man.
Dude, I'm so stoked for
Big
her.
fan
She
of Chelsea.
deserves this. First of all,
keeps getting a push.
She's great with her facial expressions and just like the way she sells everything. It's like very like meant for wrestling, that perfect over the top kind of like vibe. And she's good, and I mean she's very beautiful, and like, dude, like there's literally no reason why she doesn't have more of a role. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, her losing all the time, like I get it. It's like, oh, it's like her character, she loses all the time. I'm like, yeah, but she deserves more than that, in my opinion.
She's actually talented. She doesn't need to lose all the time. So speaking of Punk, though, backstage, I believe we had Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, and they're up against a garage door, and they start hearing bangs, and the garage door to the arena slowly opens, and you just see bloody beaten Punk with Drew McIntyre standing over him.
This was good.
Drew picks up Punk, puts him over his shoulders. One shot, camera follows him from the back with Punk slowly out to the ramp. McIntyre just drops him, doesn't place him down, just drops him off his back. Punk slams on the ground. Massive heat for Drew in Chicago. Doesn't say anything. He just looks around. I think he might have sat down in like the the Punk pose, I think cross-legged at the top of the ramp and looked around. Yeah, just continuing to build this massive storyline between these two. And this was one way to do it in Chicago.
It's so, with the layers of the Punk, dude, they got so many things going for them right now. And that's the thing, like, it's so weird. Like, if there's anybody listening that's been a day one listener, I would say when we first started this podcast, like a lot of us in 2021, 22, we were all very excited about AEW. It was new, it was hot, it was cool. Vince was still in charge of WWE, and like now, dude, WWE has so many good things going for him. Like Vince is gone. Triple H runs it. We used to like literally remember Andy like years ago. We'd be like, dude, one day when Triple H finally runs it, because we would watch
here, dude.
we would watch NXT and we're like, dude, is this how WWE's gonna, or like WWE, is this how Raw and SmackDown are gonna be one day? It's like, yes, it is. But yeah, God, I mean, they have the layers of this storyline right now with Drew and Punk. You have the looming storyline of, is Roman ever going to come back? You know, quote unquote. You know, you have the little stuff in between, like these little storylines with Dom and Liv, and then Rhea's going to come back and she's eventually going to beat Liv's ass because she's taking Dom. And like, dude, I'm like, they got so much
the stuff
like,
with Finn and Liv and Finn and Damian.
uh-huh. And then, I mean, every storyline,
it's good shit, pal.
It's good. Every storyline's good shit, pal. It's bangers right now, bangers after bangers. And then you have this and then The Rock. I don't want to give him too much credit because he's been getting on my nerves lately, but you got to give him. He's got this looming overall arcing storyline that's like the quote unquote final boss. You never know when he's gonna come back.
It's like circles with a bigger circle with a bigger circle.
Yeah, it's like you never know when he's gonna come back, and then that's gonna make shit be like even more crazy. And then here's what's even, dude, Brock's gonna come back. He'll be back soon. I'm telling you, like 6 months. 6 months, he'll be back. I'm calling it.
6 months would be the Rumble.
No, maybe. Okay, well, if he's not coming back at the Rumble, they're gonna move on from all this stuff, and I think he's gonna come back. They put him back on the roster page. They're talking about him again.
Still can't play as him in the game. Maybe eventually they'll add him back.
I'll tell you this right now: if that DLC becomes available, he's coming back.
You're right. Well, let's continue on. Carmella Hayes qualifies for Money in the Bank by defeating Randy Orton and Tama Tonga. LA Knight would come out, tried to call out Logan Paul. Santos Escobar would come out instead. And after a back and forth exchange, Logan Paul would attack LA Knight from behind. Kevin Owens, Grayson Waller, and Andrade would have a qualifying match. Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga would attack KO during his entrance, and KO would continue with the match. But in the end, I was happy to see this. Andrade would qualify.
Okay.
This is actually going to be Andrade's second Money in the Bank match that he's been in. He was in, I think, as soon as he came up to the main roster, he was in the Money in the Bank match. Originally, that's when he did the sunset flip to Finn, and Finn bounced twice off the ladder. If you remember it, when it was like seesawed. And then our main event was Cody Rhodes versus Our main event was Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa. Before the match, as Tim kind of hinted at, like, when's Roman coming back? Well, before the match, Solo tells Heyman that Roman is never coming back.
And it's just such a good build because he's coming back, obviously. We all know this. But
yeah.
It's just, you know, when he comes back, he's going to be pissed. He's going to be beating some ass of this quote-unquote new bloodline.
Love it. Well, let's continue talking about this new bloodline. Tama and Loa would interfere right away, causing a DQ in this match of Cody and Solo. Randy and KO would come out to help, and then we had a debut, an impending debut that people have been waiting on, of Jacob Fatu. And dude, this dude 1v3 the top 3 baby faces on SmackDown, Randy, Kevin, and Cody Rhodes, and fucking ate a super kick from Kevin Owens, didn't fucking budge. Super kicked everyone. Samoan dropped Kevin Owens onto the steel steps. Fucking got on the top rope, jumped off, and splashed Cody onto from the top rope to the announce table. Dude outshined every member of the bloodline. Looked like a complete monster. I know you've talked about how at one point Corny was like, I don't think people understand what Jacob Fatu can do.
I mean, Corny
And the dude's
and
in great shape from the stuff I've seen of him on the indies.
yeah, I mean, Corny and then other MLW fans and then other indie fans and people have been saying, they're like, dude, Solo's cool, like all these guys are cool, but where the fuck is Jacob Fatu? And here he is, and now everybody's seeing why everybody was so pumped. I mean, his presence alone, it's very much, he has this intensity of it's like if the Umaga character was a little, I don't want to be disrespectful and say the Umaga character was like silly, but this feels like a scarier version of that, like a
It's a
beast.
modernized.
Like, you know, he's like a beast. Like he's gonna beat your ass.
So a couple things. Oh, Haku and Tonga Kid were tag team partners. Haku's children are Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and then his partner Tonga Kid, his son is Jacob Fatu. So now they're all in the same group. Another side thing, which is more of a sad thing, but it's related to Bloodline. Sika passed away today. Roman's dad of
That's
the Wild Samoan. So
that's a real shame. And does Dad know that? You know what? And
I have no idea.
I know every now and then I know Dad listens to these episodes. See, Andy
Dude,
and
pops
I's
his head
father.
in and out of the wrestling.
No, and our father is a secret. I got a couple stories about this son of a bitch. All right, I'm just kidding, Dad. I love you. But they're all. He was looking at me like, "Oh, I don't remember this ever happened." Okay, so one, he loves wrestling. He doesn't want to admit that he loves wrestling, but he loves wrestling. He used to ask me and Andy all the time who the champ was, and he loved Brock.
Who's the champ now? Who's in the main event at WrestleMania this year?
Who's in the main event? How's
As I say,
Brock
he pokes
doing?
his head in and out, be like, "What's going on over there?" He's like a guy across the ocean, just like, "What's going on over there?"
I remember when we were kids. He had taped, any of the older fans listening that are at least in their mid-30s will remember this. Dad had taped All Dogs Go to Heaven on VHS for us. And it was like a taped, like, over copy. And he had taped it over something he had already taped. And that thing that he taped was like Macho Man versus like Hulk Hogan with like the mega powers explode. And I remember that was always like the first, my introduction to wrestling ever was two things. Was being at grandma's house and seeing Ric Flair walk down on WCW Saturday. It was like Saturday morning or something. And then the other thing was on the All Dogs Go to Heaven VHS tape, seeing Hulk Hogan and Macho Man face to face in the promo, and then it would cut off, and then All Dogs would Go to Heaven would start. So Dad was a wrestling fan. He is a wrestling fan.
He is a wrestling fan. So that wraps up SmackDown. I just, while you're here, want to go over Forbidden Door predictions. We'll try our best. I'm gonna apologize for butchering names, and a lot of these people, me and Tim, are not gonna know. But I'll go through it. All right, MJF is facing a guy from MLL. He's been on AEW the past couple weeks. I'm gonna say it's MJF versus Hechicero. It's Hechicero. I'm just gonna go with MJF. He's back.
I mean, yeah, there's no way MJF's losing.
All right, this is an interesting match. The next one, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy.
I like Zack Sabre Jr. Orange Cassidy is not for me, but I do think he's very athletic and does some pretty impressive stuff. I get. I think I'm gonna have to go. This one's tough because I don't know if Zack Sabre Jr. would want to lose, but also I don't know if Orange Cassidy's been getting his ass beat lately, just like all over TV and stuff. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna go Orange Cassidy wins.
I'll go Zack Sabre Jr. I mean, God, I hope. All right, Owen Hart Foundation Tournament first round match. Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi. Bryan Danielson, because the tournament's going to continue. I think this is going to be, like, this is his last year. I think it's going to culminate in Wembley, and Bryan Danielson's going to be in that main slot at Wembley.
Yeah, I guess.
That's really my reasoning behind it.
Yeah. I'll go Danielson.
This is just first round match. He still has to go to finals eventually, but
I know. I'm just thinking
right,
we've already had 2 Japanese wrestlers lose, so I'm like, I'm just trying to
the first one was CMLL, but yeah, 2 outside of AEW wrestlers lose.
Okay, well, we've already had 2. So we've already had 2 AEW Team AEW win.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, but I don't know. We'll see. That one's a tough one.
Well, it's about to be another one. Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa.
See, I'm like, fuck, you can't just have AEW win everything. There's no way they agreed. There's no way the other companies agree to this. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
they might.
Someone's got to win.
Well, I'm saying Toni Storm. I don't see. And then the next one, you're gonna be like, what the fuck? TBS Championship and NJPW Strong Women's Championship match. Mercedes Moné versus Stephanie Vaquer. Mercedes ain't dropping that title right away.
No, see,
she's about to be a double champ.
That's what makes me think that Toni would lose in the match before, because you can't have Toni win and then Mercedes win. AEW's just beating everybody's ass all up and down the card the whole night. Dude, there's no way.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, there's only one other. So I'm going Mercedes in that one. There's only one other New Japan match, and this one I would be like, well, if they win this, then maybe that's why. So IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match: Jon Moxley versus Naito. Naito wins, gets the belt back, brings it back to New Japan.
Okay, well then that's the, like you said, I guess I didn't remember that was happening. So that's the leverage right there to be like, you can beat Mox clean or whatever if we
bring the belt back
to do this in the first part. I don't know. We'll see.
We get to
Who knows?
Destroy your.
I don't. But here's the thing: Moxley could win, dude. I don't know.
All right. AEW TNT Championship ladder match: Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, Lio Rush, Dante Martin, Jack Perry, and then one more to be decided. I'm already going Jack Perry.
Jack Perry. Yeah.
Becomes a new TNT champion.
Yeah, of course.
And then, main event: Will Ospreay versus Swerve. Does Will become a double champ? Do we have a unclean finish? See, I like Swerve a lot. I don't want Swerve to lose.
This one makes me sad because this one I feel like Will's gonna win, but he shouldn't win because I don't think the booking of Swerve gave him the opportunity to shine like he should have. That's my opinion.
Okay. Man, I wish Jeremy had been able to pop on, but maybe we can pick his brain next week. So Forbidden Door is this coming Sunday. Today's Tuesday. It's this Sunday, which is the 30th? What day is your wife's birthday?
The 29th.
Is it the 29th? So it's the 30th. So we will talk about what happened at Forbidden Door next podcast.
Yes.
Tim, do you have any shows?
Yes, actually, this one's kind of funny. It's more of a haha, but it's because we've been doing the WCW Who Killed WCW. This one you can go on Peacock, pull up the WWE section, pull up the WCW subsection from there, and this was my classic show of the week is WCW Sin from January 14th, 2001. At this point, we are in the later years of WCW, and things are weird and not going well. A lot of this is not. If you were a WCW fan in its heyday with Black and White Sting and the Rafters and the NWO, or even up to the Wolfpack Goldberg era, this is a very different WCW than you remember. So let's go through this card. Okay, for the Cruiserweight Championship, you have Chavo Guerrero Jr. versus Shane Helms, who is also known as the Hurricane. God, these next two guys, I know one guy, the other guy, I have no idea who he even is. Reno against Big Vito. The next match is, oh God, guys. The Jung, I just want to preface that this is how it's said, and I'm not saying it the wrong way, okay? Andy, it's the Jung Dragons, Jung. So the Jung Dragons, Kaz Hashi versus and you. All right, hang on.
Dude, and I'm looking at a picture of them. They look awful.
Dude, the Jung Dragons versus Kaz Hayashi and why do I keep saying first? It's the team of Kaz Hayashi and Young Yang against Evan Karagias and Jamie Noble. Dude, WCW at this point is rough. My God. Okay, Ernest the Cat Miller against Mike Sanders. The fuck is that? I need to go back and watch this myself. We'll all do it together, guys.
The Vince Russo era. Apparently.
Dude, this is crazy. All right. Team Canada, which is Eli Skipper, Lance Storm, and Mike Awesome, who was an ECW guy, against the Filthy Animals, Billy Kidman, Conan, and Rey Mysterio Jr. This is when Rey had, like, no mask.
Hello, Jeremy. Yeah, we're going through Tim's classic show of the week.
Jeremy, we're doing the
already.
Yeah, we're doing the cringiest classic show of the week ever right now.
We started at 8:30.
Oh wow. So cool.
Jeremy's here, guys. Oh, Jeremy, you just made it in time for. We got a lot more cringy matches. Hang on. So,
oh boy.
Team Canada, Eli Skipper, Lance Storm, and Mike Awesome against the Filthy Animals, which is Billy Kidman, Conan, and Rey Mysterio Jr. with no mask. The next one is a triple threat hardcore match for the WCW Hardcore Championship. Crowbar and Terry Funk versus Ming, which is Haku. The Natural Born Thrillers, Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare against the Insiders, Diamond Dallas Page and Kevin Nash. Instead of the Outsiders, it's the Insiders, bro. Uh,
Wow.
dude, I'm not even lying. This is what this guy's real name is. First Blood Chain match, United States Heavyweight Championship match, Shane Douglas versus General Rection.
General Erection?
Yes. We're talking about the
That
Vince
can't be a
Russo.
real name.
We're talking about the Vince Russo era of WCW. And this is my classic
okay.
show of the
All right.
week is WCW Sin. So Shane Douglas versus General Rection. God. Totally Buffed, the team of Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell versus Goldberg and Dwayne Bruce. Who the fuck is that? All right.
Dwayne Bruce.
And
This
then
card sucks.
dude, this is the worst classic show of the week ever, but it's pretty funny. And then the last match of the night
You want fans
is
to hate you, watch the show.
dude, this match is so bad. Okay. This is the main event. A 4 corners match for the WCW World
It's a
Heavyweight
four-post
Championship. Scott Steiner against Jeff Jarrett against Sid Vicious against Road Warrior Animal. Dang. That's crazy.
Wow.
Well, you guys, I hope you enjoy WCW Sin 2001. And it's a beautiful time for you. Jeremy, is there any one thing that you want to say about this week's happenings in wrestling since you're here? Was there anything that stood out that maybe you just were like, hey, I thought this was good or funny? Do you want to talk about the Wyatt stuff? Andy had a couple
Yeah.
things. He wanted to ask you a couple things.
I was gonna say the Wyatt stuff I actually really liked a lot. The interview style like video they did, I thought was really cool. Especially like I didn't think they were gonna go like this real when like Uncle Howdy was like,
hey, we're not talking about last night.
oh my god,
about
that's
the
last night. That's
debut.
right. I totally forgot. All right, never mind. But yeah, last week, yeah, that was still pretty cool.
Jeremy, I guess that was pretty cool too.
I totally forgot about that was last night. It feels like it was a while ago already. No, I think that's really cool what they're doing with them. And it's like I don't know. I feel like it's something like WWE was like not missing, but like they didn't have like this like supernatural type of thing at all in their storyline. So I think it's kind of like a cool new thing they're doing.
And then I'm going to ask you one prediction from Forbidden Door. Swerve Strickland or Will Ospreay?
Yeah, I want Swerve, but I feel like they're gonna go Will Ospreay like 100%.
Ask him 2 more.
From Forbidden Door?
Yeah.
Oh, who you got in the ladder match? TNT Championship. I said Jack Perry.
Yeah, I was gonna go with him too because like they're pushing him up like pretty heavily right now.
Basically, we were going through. We're like AEW seems like it's good. Our predictions like AEW is going to win basically all of them, except for Naito is probably going to be Mox. But
yeah, the difference, like I think this year, especially with AEW New Japan, is like Will Ospreay was New Japan before, and also Okada was, and now they're both with AEW, and that's kind of like huge like star power over on AEW. So they don't like New Japan doesn't have like huge stars. I feel like anymore.
yeah, we said Mercedes is going to win. Tony Storm will beat Mina.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like Forbidden Door like it did the past few years at all.
There's also like CMLL people.
Yeah. They didn't really give you like a, I don't know.
Any like thoughts on the Punk stuff this week?
I love everything about this feud, the Drew and Punk stuff.
So good.
I think that's like the feud of the year already. Like it's going to be the feud of the year.
Summer of Punk.
Yeah.
2024. The third Summer of Punk.
Yeah, the third one. If we say that he can't get hurt this time, that'd be like a curse if we say that now.
I know, seriously. God, I'd be so mad. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
I'm excited to talk about Forbidden Door next week.
Was there anything else that we covered that is worth? Did you end up watching?
Jeremy, how do you like in WCW? Who killed it?
I was gonna say, did you watch any of the third episode?
I did. Yeah. The thing that stood out to me after I watched it, I was like when I was watching Eric Bischoff talk about all this stuff, like throughout, like the first 3 episodes, actually, I was like, I feel like he would have a lot more understanding of where AEW is right now than anyone, but he just like trashes them all the time.
I think it's because
he knows what mistakes were made.
I think Eric trashes them because he has tried to like give advice, and they've basically been like, you're an irrelevant like dude who doesn't.
That's true. Yeah.
Who they're like, you're irrelevant. And you bankrupt your own company, and then he's like, all right, well then fuck you. He's like,
yeah.
It's funny. Do you remember in the beginning of AEW, he was brought in for a couple things?
Yeah. Him and Tony were like pretty close, I think. And then Tony was kind of like, all right, I don't need you anymore.
I think sometimes if somebody tells you something that you don't want to hear, all of a sudden that you're like, I don't know if I want this guy around anymore.
Yeah. Like, that's usually a good thing. It's like when people don't agree with you all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to bounce stuff off. I mean, when I'm writing music with friends, it's like sometimes you're like, hey, I have this part, and they're like, this part's cool, but what if I added this part? Or what if we slowed it down or sped it up? And then all of a sudden you're like, well, it's way better now. It's good. It's sometimes good to bounce stuff off people. But Jeremy, I'm glad
also, I think.
Oh, no, keep going. I want you to get your thoughts on it as much as possible.
I also think that through these first 3 episodes as well, Bill Goldberg does not come across as any better. Like at all. Like I'm 100% like on Brett's side.
And everyone's an idiot to Brett. Everyone in the company is full of idiots.
Dude, I was like cracking up because like especially the times when he was like, I think it was early on the episodes, but like when Goldberg was like, he's like, I didn't mean to like tackle him and hurt him. I'm like, that's not like an excuse. He can be like, I didn't mean to do this.
Because Kevin Nash is like, this isn't football.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, you can make it look like you're doing it. He's like, that's just how I am.
I'm like, that's not an excuse, Goldberg.
And then,
oh jeez, 4th episode comes out tonight. Yeah. Final episode.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that. I think it's about the last Nitro and the Vince's version of WCW and the Invasion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
but you know that she's a pug, so like I'm gonna definitely be watching her tonight.
Take us out, Tim.
Well, guys, I'll do one more outro. one more.
Can I just say the only time that I'm late to the show, and then you guys decide to start early. Actually, like usually we're always waiting for Tim.
I know.
Tim hit me up at 8:25 and was like, "Let's get this started." I was like, "Jesus, okay."
My daughter went to bed early tonight. I was like, "Let's jump right in." But thank you guys for listening to episode 134. Please go watch WCW Sin on Peacock right now, and just have a good time watching it because it's pretty funny. And find a way. I mean, look, everybody's got their own financial like business. I'm not telling anybody what to do. You can get the Who Killed WCW for $5 on YouTube. That's how I'm watching it. I got the whole season for $5, and I
use Andy's website.
Yeah, and you could do the Andy's website too. I'm just saying, but it's really worth watching. It's fascinating. A lot of people will brush off like, oh, the finger poke of doom killed WCW, or Vince Russo just being stupid killed WCW. There's a lot more factors, and it's been a very fascinating show. So, worth the watch, and we will catch you next week. And thank you guys so much for joining us. And we always have such a good time talking pro wrestling with y'all. Have a great week.